relax.
So Jason Cole, yesterday, NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame selector, so he knows a thing or two about this particular discussion, was kind of just casually doing a drive-by of some quarterbacks, and he made some Hall of Fame comments that sort of got us spiraling down this path.
It occupied every break.
It did, and then it occupied a good chunk of the rest of my day because our friend Austin, who comes in and hangs out with us sometimes.
I think you were a little salty in that conversation.
Who, me?
Because I happened to catch you in the middle of it.
Yeah, you did. I wasn't really salty.
What did I call for?
I don't know, something.
Okay.
I can't remember. It was I think it was mostly a casual conversation. It wasn't anything terribly pressing.
Oh, I know what it was. Officiating.
That's right. Yeah. But so Austin at some point had come in. He's the only Carolina Panthers fan that I know outside of you.
Okay. He's a good man.
And so we had this Luke Kuechly discussion a couple days ago where I said, I'd rather see Torrey Holton over Luke Kuechly for, various reasons. And so he comes in, writes on the whiteboard in my office, Kuechly's a Hall of Famer, blah, 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 keep pounding all this, Panthers.
That's what you walked in.
Panthers nonsense. And I go, listen, man.
What's his history with Carolina? No, never mind.
We'll figure it out.
I want to finish this.
We'll figure it out later. But we've got a couple open segments here. We'll be okay. We'll get to it. But I much like Jason was talking about how they wanted to be more selective, I need something more exclusive than the NFL.
Ruckus Jason or a different Jason? Oh,
Jason Cole.
My bad.
Not Uncle Ruckus.
My bad.
No, I didn't watch the Boondocks.
Go. Just go.
I thought it was Uncle Rico.
Different guy.
No.
Different. I think different target audience too, if I'm being honest. I think we need something more exclusive than the Hall of Fames. They've gotten away from us a little bit. They've become halls of very good, and I need better. This is why years ago, in a former life, I came up with the concept of Lulla stars for the NBA. There are 18 Lulla stars since the NBA-ABA merger in 1976. That's it. There's been way more Hall of Famers.
So in a Ravi Hall of Fame, you don't have 18 NBA players.
Since the merger, correct. Because here's what I think matters. I need them to be more exclusive. Maybe it can be a special room inside the Hall of Fame. It's the Lulla Stars room. But here's how I defined it for the NBA. And I'll give you my definition for the NFL as well. So for the NBA, I need you to have the career resume, obviously. It has to stand up. You can't just have 4 months of Jeremy Lin, but it happens to be during the playoffs, so you win a title, and that's your thing, right? Have to have the career resume to back it up. And number two, this is the most important one and the most controversial one because it leaves out some guys that everybody else likes a lot. You have to be the reason your team won a championship. You have to be, or the reason the team could win a championship, right? And the most controversial leave-off on this particular list is one Kevin Durant because he obviously has the career resume and he has titles. But you know what? There's a reason he didn't want to go back to Golden State. That's Steph Curry's team. Steph Curry's the reason they won those titles. And all of Kevin Durant's prior and subsequent stops kind of prove my point on Kevin Durant. Now, that's one that Jacob's going to text me about because he gets very mad about that one. But Kevin Durant, not a Lulla star, just as an example. The NFL, it's a little trickier, right? Because you don't have the one-to-one. There's not a linear, hey, you're really great. You're the reason your team won a title, right? The ultimate team game. How often do we hear people say that? So this is where I landed on the NFL, is you have to have the career resume, and then you have to matter in the story of the NFL. In your era, you have to matter. And that is very subjective. I understand that. And it's a bit ambiguous, more so than the NBA. But I think what?
Nothing.
You good?
Yes.
I think it's a good measuring stick because if you want to talk about what matters in the history of a sport, that's what a Hall of Fame is supposed to do. It's a museum.
But
it's supposed to tell you about the history of the sport.
I'm going to use this word only because you did, and I'm going to move on.
Ambiguous?
Yes.
Okay.
So once you get that out there, you open yourself up to debate,
which I want. I want the debate because you could tell me that Luke Kuechly changed the way that linebackers played the position, and I'd be open to it, right? He may not have mattered in terms of his team or his accomplishments, but if he changes the way that a position is played, I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm.
I had an argument about, or not an argument, we had a discussion about Steve Smith. Steve Smith was one of the first small primary wide receivers.
Not really.
Who was before him as like a really little guy that was like a true X and not a slot?
I don't know. Charlie Brown, maybe. Mark Duper.
Charlie Brown, like the cartoon?
No, this guy was African American and
Oh.
he played wide receiver for the Redskins.
Charlie Brown played a little football too, but he was a kicker. I don't know if you recall.
Back to that ambiguous thing again.
How tall was Mark Duper?
Do
Do we know?
I'm going to say 5'10".
5'10"? Okay. Okay, they've got him at 5'9". So if you want to say, hey, Steve Smith's not that guy, I'm here for it, right? I've got some recency bias. I understand that. Your Rolodex on the NFL is certainly deeper than mine. So I'll hear that.
Although Smith's career significantly better at first blush than Mark Duper.
Sure.
But there were a lot of...
But if he's not a trailblazer, the career by itself.
Weren't the Redskins, didn't they have the itty-bitty committee outside of Art Monk?
Oh, for the receivers?
Or was that Houston? No, because Haywood Jeffries was bigger. Who was the itty-bitty committee? I know we called our receivers that, but we had taken it from somebody.
We're going to look.
I think it was I'm pretty sure it was Gary Brown or Gary Clark, and I think it was Gary Clark and Charlie Brown.
I'm not getting a good answer. I'm going to have to look it up during a break. But my point is, and if that's the case with Steve Smith, we can leave him out. I don't have a problem with that. My point is, if you've got a guy that kind of revolutionizes a position or is a one-of-one, like Barry Sanders is a one-of-one as a running back in terms of stylistically and what he did.
Going
right?
for 1,500 yards in year 9?
Yeah, and just the way he ran the football, that's not been duplicated, right? And what hasn't been before hasn't been since. Barry Sanders matters in the course of the NFL.
So what if they didn't do it long enough, but they did something?
It depends on how long their peak is, right? Because Barry Sanders, all 9 years were a peak, basically, right? We have other guys where it's like, hey, they played 7-8 years. Patrick Willis is a great example of this. He was good the whole time. He probably had 5 really good years.
So there's 3 backs that come to mind currently that I think the story should be told more, but it's kind of an afterthought.
Okay.
Priest Holmes, Jamal Charles, and Chris Johnson.
Okay. What's the case?
Curtis Duncan. That's nice. Very nice call. That's Houston. Do you remember that group, Shane?
With the tiny receivers?
Yeah. Very good. That's a good pull, man. That's a good pull.
Good talk, Shane.
Oh, no problem.
Boy, you are on one this morning.
You are on fire.
Jeez.
What do you want to talk about?
Nothing now. You missed it.
Clearly.
That delay caught you.
That's exactly right.
What's the argument for Priest Holmes, Jamal Charles, and Chris Johnson?
So they were so spectacular, but for a very small period of time. I feel like I want to talk about them more, but I don't know if people would think it's significant to the football story.
Yeah, in the history of football.
Yeah.
That would be my argument against those guys. They can go in the regular Hall of Fame. That's fine. If you want to put them there. They can't go in the Lulla Stars part. Because I don't think, unless you've got an argument for me, I don't know how much they mattered in the course of the NFL.
So let me understand this. Is the Lulla Stars, you want that to be the prerequisite for the Hall of Fame, or are we still just talking Hall of Fame?
No, so Hall of Fame is like the outer ring, right? Lulla Stars is where the elite of the elite go. This is the inner circle. These are the people you cannot tell the story of the NFL without, and they had the career resumes to back it up. Those are the golden circle, the golden ring, whatever you want to call it, of NFL history. Those are the guys, right? Austin brought up a good example of Joe Thomas. Joe Thomas, great football player, largely forget his career even happened. He was insignificant to the course of the NFL history because of where he played.
I don't know why you would punish people for markets and franchises, though.
Because other people have overcame them. That's the point.
Some.
So if some
I can only think of a hand. At first blush, I can only think of one, really.
Who?
Butkus.
Because
they were awful.
I would argue Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders overcame franchise and market. There's more than you think. We can continue this conversation next, though, on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back. Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. Mike is very mad about the Joe Thomas thing. Guess what? I can tell the story of the NFL without Joe Thomas.
Wait, I got to go back to our stream.
He's your Mikey D, Mike Delaware.
Oh, that's my dude.
Yeah. Guess what?
Well,
you
I'm
can
Mike
tell.
D and I get him, Mike.
You can tell the story of that portion of the NFL without Joe Thomas.
I just think
greatness isn't enough. He can be in the Hall of Fame. He can be in the regular ass Hall of Fame with all the other guys.
Well, the Lulu Stars thing is made up.
It is made up. So is the Hall of Fame. Somebody just made it up one day. You know that, right?
This dude. What do you have for breakfast? I'm dead serious.
Pop-Tarts.
Because whatever it is, don't eat it again.
I haven't even cracked open the energy drink yet. See? Look at that.
You're gonna get me kicked off.
Look at that. I haven't even opened the energy drink yet.
You don't need it.
Just wait till we get going.
Hey, so my man CJ sent me I love when my players do that. They're such good dudes.
Oh no, I'm discrediting franchise loyalty. Nobody cares, Mike. Nobody cares.
You know he's nuts, right?
It's 2025. Nobody cares. And you know what? No, I can't tell the story of the Browns without Joe Thomas. But guess what? I can tell the story of the NFL without the Browns.
Wow.
I don't care if you must be a Browns fan, which is lovely for you.
Kevin, K-Mac, he's got a good one.
What does he say?
Because you did say there's more. So I'll give you Barry. I'll give you Butkus. OJ belongs because the Bills were awful.
Yeah, he was the first 2,000-yard rusher. He has done enough that has never been done before or had never been done before that he makes it because he matters in the story of the NFL.
So with regards to what though, 14 games. I mean, is it a different story than Dickerson? Is it a different story than?
It is a different story than Dickerson. He's when you're the first one to do something that matters.
But it's been done
since.
Oh,
I get that. Not a lot. It's been done more since.
I guess I'm struggling with how important you think the story is. It seems kind of arbitrary.
I mean, it is a subjective line, which is why it is open to debate. I can hear it. If you want to give me a reason for Dickerson, then give me the reason for Dickerson.
I think you belong in the storytelling if you were the best at doing something while you did it. Kuechly certainly qualifies.
Yeah, that's not good enough.
Well, that's fine. Like I'm not like that's okay. That's just that's
that's my
that's
my threshold.
That's a total you thing.
It is, but
because it's about whether you care about it or not.
I think it matters to be better than just great. Like you have to also matter. Like greatness is one thing, and that's awesome. Good for Joe Thomas, good for Eric Dickerson, good for whoever else that we've talked about, right? But I also need you to matter to the game. If you're going to make that extra leap from regular ass Hall of Fame where everybody makes it to this, not everybody makes it. That's the NBA. I know. NFL is more exclusive, but if you want to make that extra jump,
NFL is actually
it's better.
It's pretty exclusive.
It's better.
It's tough.
But if you're going to go,
I mean, Vinatieri might have to wait like 2 more votes.
Yeah, which is wild.
I mean, Gary Anderson says, "Hold my Gatorade." Gary Anderson took forever.
He did. I think Vinatieri matters more to the history.
And he was goaty, and Vinatieri matters more than Gary Anderson.
He does.
Not Gary Anderson, Morton Anderson.
Morton Anderson. But Adam Vinatieri matters more to the history of the game than Morton Anderson does. I think.
Yeah.
So Adam Vinatieri should be in.
I wonder.
He's got the career accolades, and
I wonder, statistically speaking, outside of the hardware, Morton Anderson is the better kicker, right?
Maybe.
I'm pulling this out of.
I'd have to go look.
Yeah. So
all I know is
can I just use those two to tell the story?
Sure.
If you concede that Morton Anderson is the better kicker, but the story needs to be told with Vinatieri with the game winners and the rings.
Yeah.
You would justify Vinatieri ahead of Morton Anderson?
Yeah, because Vinatieri also has the resume. Like, I need both. I'm asking.
What if he's just
both.
a better player?
And what good did it do him?
Oh, see, you're losing me. Because what do you? So it's like the whole disagreement when Cam Newton answered the question the way that he did about would you trade your MVP for the Super Bowl?
Right.
And I kind of was riding with Cam's thought process.
I can get where he was coming from. I do.
Well, you have to, according to to how you look at it.
I do think that matters. Dallas asked an interesting question, and a guy that I actually talked about yesterday. He says, "Does Roger Craig make the Lulla Stars?" He absolutely does.
I like Dally.
He is not even in the regular Hall of Fame, which is a travesty.
But you have
does
to
matter.
tell the story of 1,000,000.
Exactly. He's in. He's a Lula star, and he's got the career resume to back it up.
See, you're losing me.
Where?
And he's my like. I just told him like I'm a huge RC guy.
He matters.
I wore 21 because of Roger Craig, but there are a ton of players that were better runners or better pass catchers as receivers than RC. But because RC was the first to
very good at both,
you make him different then.
I do.
I don't know if I can.
I
can't vibe with that.
Harder to replicate his skill set. Harder to replicate his skill set. A lot of guys are good runners. That's fine.
Okay.
A lot of guys are good receivers. That's fine.
Oh, he used a better example because AJ used an even better example. So according to your standards, Craig is in and Falk would be out.
No, Marshall Falk is also in because he matters for different reasons.
But it's already been done before.
The 1,000,000 has been done before, but Marshall Falk was a key piece of a era-defining team. That greatest show on turf, Rams, matter to the history of the NFL. And he was
you're talking real time.
In their era, yes.
Because
in their era, real time, they are a defining team in the NFL.
So what makes them because they won the title makes them different than like the run and shoot or
it makes them different than Air Coryell and all. Yes, it makes them different. This is what we play for. We play for championships, right? So that matters.
But what you're discounting is individual talent. I don't know. I can't ride with that.
I'm not discounting.
Well, it doesn't have enough value on your ranking system.
I am valuing it less than the Hall of Fame does. Yes. I need you to have the extra thing.
I can't ride with that.
I need you to have the extra thing.
Not even so I'm back to now I can't even entertain it. I can't because because at some point if a guy's better than another guy, that has to matter more.
It does matter.
Period.
For the regular Hall of Fame,
no,
it matters.
Just not enough for you. Like, period.
No, because I want the extra thing also. Roger Craig is an outlier because
Ravi.
What?
If you're talking about telling a story,
yes,
this is where I'm telling you have to be careful.
Okay.
Eli Manning has to be a Lula star because he has 2 of the 3 wins against Brady's 3 losses.
Here's the problem, though. He doesn't meet the other criteria.
But he does, though. He threw for 4. Yes, he does.
His career stats do not hold up.
Of other Hall of Famers?
Of other guys in his era. Like, yes, his stats hold up against the 80s and 70s quarterbacks.
But you told me that. So where's your cutoff for ability?
What do you mean?
Like, because it's clearly not high enough to.
Was there any point during Eli Manning's career where you would have put him in the top 3 quarterbacks in the era?
No.
5?
No.
7?
No.
10? Maybe getting close?
Yes.
So that's the point.
That's pretty arbitrary. But the story part he nails.
He does, but he doesn't get there on the resume.
If you wanted to make the case, he's going to get in.
Probably to the Hall of Fame, yes.
Okay, so
this is more exclusive.
If you operate, then he's in.
No, it's more exclusive than the Hall of Fame.
That's fine. If he makes the bare minimum for the Hall of Fame, then he has to make your criteria for the Lulu Stars of telling the story.
No,
because he's already going to meet the criteria of getting in the Hall of Fame.
And I disagree with it. I don't think his resume, his actual performance is good enough. He is a 500 quarterback right on the dot. 60% completion percentage, which is not great for that era. He is 366 to 244 touchdown interceptions. Not good for that era.
Does the franchise count as storytelling?
Elaborate.
Can you tell the story of the NFL or about the NFL without the Cleveland Browns? That's what I mean.
Without the new Cleveland Browns, yeah.
What about the move? What about Modell, Thief in the Night?
Yeah, but that's Browns to Ravens. Like, has anything happened from the new Browns that has mattered in the NFL? Have they moved the needle in 25 years as the new franchise at all?
25 years.
So 99, right, is when they came back? Have they mattered at all?
They just missed the cut.
Have they mattered at all?
They just missed the cut.
So that's, like, I think you could tell the story the last 25 years in the NFL without talking about the Browns a single time. That's where it's tough for Joe Thomas.
What's tough for me is how low weighted the individual player's talent is.
I weigh it very highly. I just need the other part too. If you don't have the other part, what am I going to do with it?
Interesting.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and brought to you by our friends over at Centris Federal Credit Union. Are you looking for a new car this time of year? They've got you covered with some great options for auto financing. Go over to centrisfcu.org to talk to one of their experts to see what your options are if you're looking to get into a new vehicle. Federally insured by NCUA. That's centrisfcu.org. So some people are mad. Mostly DB, I think.
I'm not mad. I'm just not. I don't buy it.
I get that you don't buy it,
and I think it's pretty easy to see why. The level of discounting the talent, all things being equal, I would have to go to is a guy better than another guy over can I tell the story?
I need both. I just want you to have both.
No, that's fine. But I can't rate can you tell the story more than if the guy was just better.
So who am I leaving out that you think tells the story well that I'm discounting their individual greatness?
Individual greatness?
Because you're talking about a guy just being great should matter, right?
Yeah, like I think.
But who am
I think what offensive lineman? How many offensive linemen?
Sure.
Like, what's the difference between Walter Jones and Joe Thomas?
Walter Jones played for winners.
Okay.
Here's my question though about Joe Thomas, right? Okay.
What about like Bruce Matthews?
Let me ask him. Well, he's got the durability streak and everything like that.
So okay.
But
better than Joe Thomas?
I don't know. I didn't watch a ton of Bruce Matthews. I'm being honest. Okay. But here's my question with Joe Thomas, right? If you tell me that he revolutionized the position or something like that, I'll make an argument. Or you can make an argument to like, okay, offensive line is played differently now because of Joe Thomas. I'll hear that. That's totally fine. Here's my question though. Can we point to a great offense that they had with Joe Thomas? Can we point to a great rushing game that they had with Joe Thomas?
So outside of a
didn't
guy,
play for a winner.
You have Hannah, you have Dwight Stevenson, you have Dermontti Dawson. I'm getting into O-line now, where if you're going to tell the story, it's like, uncover center didn't used to pull, or the athleticism here. Like, are you willing to go through that?
I'm willing to. I probably don't have the level of expertise on offensive line to be great at that. I'll fully admit that, which is why I'll hear arguments on Joe Thomas, right? But if I can sit here and somebody who's an expert or knows what they're talking about with offensive line can't tell me why they're different from any other great offensive lineman, like I need a differentiator. I need, hey, they were the Broncos in the late 90s are a good example, right? They were undersized for the time. They ran the zone scheme the way nobody else did. If you want to put some of those guys in the Lulla Stars, I'll hear it because they sort of revolutionized how the game was played at the time, right? Like that's a different thing to me. I can't point, like I get Joe Thomas was great. I can't point to a single other thing other than his individual greatness that moves the needle. That bothers me if we're talking about all-time greats. And that's what we're talking about with Lulla Stars. We're talking about like all-time guys that move the needle in the league and have the career resume to back it up. I need the other thing.
Yeah, I feel like I'm debating or counterpunching a target I can't see.
I will give the NFL version of this is much more hard to nail down than the NBA version. We could do quarterbacks because there is a more direct correlation between the NBA and NFL with quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are pretty easy. Like I need you to be a guy the way I need you to be in the NBA, right? That's part of the reason Eli Manning doesn't move the needle for me because, yes, he has the two huge upsets. If he doesn't have that four-man rush, he's not winning those, right? He's not the reason they won. He made a couple big plays, terrific. But he's not like Joe Flacco is a great example. He went on a heater for 4 games, right? 3 games, whatever it was. I don't think they were a wild card. 3 games. Had a great run, got paid for it, had a really nice career. I never look at Joe Flacco as like, that's the dude.
Let me give you an example of what
Sure.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because you said this guy would meet the standard. So I'm gonna give you
Statistically?
I'm gonna give you a couple of things.
Okay.
60% completion percentage,
Mhm.
57,000 yards, 7.1 per completion, 366 touchdowns, 244 picks, a rating of 84.1.
Okay.
Okay, that's one guy.
Yep.
The next guy, 56.8 completion percentage.
Okay.
51,475 yards, 300 touchdowns, 226 picks, a rating of 77 or 78.9.
Okay. The first one's Eli Manning.
Correct.
The second one, Warren Moon.
The second one is John Elway.
Yeah.
But man, this is the arbitrary part that the storytelling thing versus the stats. What is the difference in telling a story between Manning and Elway?
So for me, I don't think Denver fans are going to get mad. I don't think Elway is the story of the two title teams. I don't.
What's the difference in the storytelling? Because
I don't think
Manning for you wasn't good enough.
I don't think there is a huge difference in the storytelling.
And Manning's stats are clearly better than Elway's.
Now, again, era does matter for quarterback stats especially.
But so does narrative. So when I say the storytelling, it's like...
So I'll give you the storytelling. For me, they're not hugely different. They are both guys who won 2 Super Bowls on teams that I think a lot of quarterbacks could have won Super Bowls on. I think late career John Elway, a lot of teams could have won Super Bowls with those guys.
You don't feel disingenuous about devaluing Eli, but like we have this particular affinity for Elway, and whether you agree with the affinity or not, the narrative is out there.
I agree.
That's where you have to be careful with storytelling.
I agree that the narrative is out there, but and you do have to be careful with storytelling. I also think you have to be willing to say, hey, I get this is the general narrative. That's not really what happened, right? John Elway has this general narrative. That's not really what happened in the championships. When John Elway was the guy, they got their heads beat in. They did. Like, they made a couple Super Bowls, they got their heads beat in. That's a guy that wasn't the reason they won the championships in the late 90s. It wasn't about him.
But hearing those stats doesn't make you immediately think anything different about
it doesn't make me think anything
how we think different, how we think of guys.
I think we think too highly of John Elway a lot. That's what it makes me think. I think we think too highly of John Elway.
Then that narrative is tough because it is about the storytelling, and one story is told much differently than the other guy.
Yeah, and it's not fair, or I don't think accurate.
Yeah.
Like, I think John...
I mean, you just asked for a point. And
that's a good point.
I think that's a pretty good one.
No, it's a very good point. But that's why you kind of have to be willing to sift through what the popular narrative versus what the actual narrative should be, right? We have to do that a lot because we get this idea in our head. Andrew Luck, we talked about Andrew Luck yesterday. We have this idea in our head that Andrew Luck was this great quarterback. He played 5.5 seasons, was good for about 3 of them, and that's it. That's all of Andrew Luck.
Travis, this is kind of what I'm talking about. Travis says, Elway is better than Eli. Not whether I agree or disagree. Why?
Why is he better than Eli?
Yeah.
I don't think he is.
No, but here's the thing, though. The point that I'm going to make, and it's regardless of what Travis says, is it's going to be about his narrative, the storytelling.
Sure.
I'm curious to hear the answer.
Yeah.
But why? Like, how are we so emphatic about that? That
Elway's better than Eli?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good answer because I don't believe that to be true. I think they're pretty similar, if I'm being honest. Like,
he said, all my flabbers are gasted. I'm not. Now, hear my heart, T-Rav. I'm not. I call my other Travis that. I call him Trouble T-Rav, but it's fine. He can just be T-Rav. I'm not making the case for one being better than the other.
You're asking what the difference is.
I presented my case in court to a counselor that is dead set on it being one way. Like, that's what I did.
Yeah, that's fine.
Now you can whomever you think is better is fine. That's my example for your argument.
Yeah, and I think that they are both very similar and would not make the cut for me. John Elway wasn't because if we're going to go quarterbacks are very similar to how I view the NBA stars.
Okay.
John Elway wasn't the reason they won those titles.
Now, I'm glad my man Josh said this. Shane, QU, get your mic on, because I asked you about another quarterback yesterday off air when we were arguing like cats and dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Josh says, so we don't give any credit to just getting to Super Bowls? Can we tell the story of the NFL without the drive? Now, I wouldn't have used the drive as the example because I think you can tell the story. Hundreds of quarterbacks have done that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will entertain the getting to the Super Bowls because who's the quarterback that I brought up yesterday?
Who?
Can you tell the story of the NFL
Mm-hmm.
without Jim Kelly? And we went to Jim Kelly's stats, and you said, "Okay, no, you can't tell the story." But I don't love his stats.
Yeah, I don't think the resume holds up.
So, for Josh, you would say your narrative is it's subjective.
It is.
It's pretty subjective.
I mean, greatness in general is subjective. It is
Not as objective as we'd like to make it. I think. Like if you just played at first blush or word clues or first thing to come to mind when you come to players, it's easier than you think.
I think we go on instinct a lot, and I think that can be a mistake.
Like I think
that's the problem I run into with people with Bo Jackson is they have this instinct about Bo Jackson.
But he was a great player.
But his resume doesn't hold up.
But he was a great player.
When he played, yes.
Yeah. So like
but if we're talking about all-timers.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But when I say was Bo Jackson a great player or not, and you just have to say yes or no, you're going to say yes.
Yes.
Okay.
But is he a Lula star or not?
It's not. I'm not saying that.
I know.
But I'm saying it's not as hard as we make it.
No, but there has to be another
even
part.
for a guy that you've argued against as much as Bo.
I know he was great.
He's a great player.
But the resume isn't there. That's my point.
Yeah.
Is the other stuff.
I understand. I'm just saying the greatness thing isn't as hard as we make it.
No, but I need longevity. I need the other stuff too. That's my point. That's nice long discussion on the Hall of Fame.